Okay, I've been asked to explain how it is that I got into working on a railroad. My current job as a conductor on a railroad, on a tourist railroad, is strictly a volunteer job. I don't do it for money because I don't get paid. I do it strictly for the enjoyment. When I grew up, we lived next to a branch line of the Missouri Pacific Railroad up in Arkansas. And almost every day the train went by, once in the morning, once in the evening. We always were attuned to that because we like trains. In this particular case, my dad was in the lumber business. He owned a sawmill. Sometimes that sawmill was located outside of town, and the railroad was the one that picked up and hauled his lumber to a town 15 miles away where he sold it to them to be made into boards for building houses and other things. On the days when he had a car that's to be picked up by the railroad, my brother and I would ride out with him to his mill. The train would come by about 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning. He'd give us each a quarter, and we'd walk over and get on the caboose, and the conductor would let us ride into town. The train usually stopped to do its switching in my hometown, where the caboose was located very close to our house, so we didn't have very far to work. That railroad, after I graduated from high school, ceased to exist. You're going to find a pathway there now. All the tracks have been pulled up because now they depend on trucks and other modes of transportation. But how did I get where I am today? After a career in the Army and located in Central Texas, I noticed in the daily newspaper one day the fact that an organization in Austin, Texas was restoring a steam engine. And I said, that's something I'd like to do. So I got in contact with them, and for the last 23 years, I've been working on that railroad. Now, what training did I get? A lot of it was on-the-job training, but a lot of it was very formal training. When you work on a railroad, particularly if you occupy what is called a safety-sensitive position, you are responsible and you are tested every year on the rules of that particular railroad. And let me just digress a minute here about rules on a railroad. Most of the railroads west of the Mississippi subscribe to the Consolidation of Railroad Rules, the general rules. This document is used by most of the railroads, and it has the same rules so that so if you were to operate on another one at times, you would understand they operate just like you do. You have to undergo a rules examination every year. Now, what are the safety-sensitive positions? Generally, on our train, they start at the top with the conductor, the engineer, the fireman, and the brakeman. Anyone fulfilling one of those positions has to be tested on a yearly basis. And you have to attain a certain score to continue working in the position in which you work. What's on the test? Well, the rule book is several hundred pages thick. Also, it has signaling information in there that you have to pass and understand verbatim, without looking at a book, what the rules are, what all of the various signals tell you in the safe operation of the railroad. You are also subject to periodic drug testing. You never know when this is going to be done. This is just like they do for airline pilots, like they do for school bus drivers, like they do for 18-wheel drivers. Anyone like that has in a safety-sensitive position has to be tested for drugs on a random basis. Now, getting back to my training. Yes, I had to go to some formal training conducted by our own people. We are allowed to train our own people for the position they are seeking to attain. Generally speaking, when you go to work on our railroad as a volunteer, and we are all volunteers, you start at the bottom unless you are coming from another tourist railroad where you enjoyed a certain position, or maybe you worked on a railroad, you were an engineer or something else, brakeman or something else. We will test you to make sure your skills are still good, but you can generally move into those positions with very little trouble. If you've never worked on a railroad like myself, well, I had to start at the bottom. I was a car attendant, then I was a crew chief, then I was a brakeman, then I was a conductor. I've also been a trainman. I enjoy being a trainman. I get to punch tickets, I get to talk to the people, I just make sure I don't have any major responsibilities. As a conductor, you have major responsibilities because you are the one that is in charge of the train. All the other people, the crew that works with you, has to respond to your directions as long as they are safe and legal. And most of the time they do, because we are all interested in making sure the railroad is safe. Just a reminder, if you were to pick up a railroad rule book today, you would find that the number one rule basically is one word: safety. Safety is the number one rule. And any doubt as to which course of action to take, no matter if it's a very complex one or a very simple one, you take the safest route possible.